listening to theoutdoorstation.co.uk.
We all like to know where we are in life, be it uphill or down dale, and yet it would probably be true to say that only a small percentage of people venturing into the outdoors feel competent to work out exactly where they are at any given moment just by using a map and compass. Having the skills of navigation at your disposal is a truly liberating experience. Getting away from the crowds, inventing your own routes, discovering new areas, and perhaps, most importantly, knowing where you are throughout the trip makes the whole experience that more enjoyable. It is little wonder then that two of Cicerone's most popular books written by Pete Hawkins, that's Navigation and the slightly larger Map and Compass, are such steady sellers.
I think there's a basic desire amongst walkers to get it right, to know where you are, to not get lost in a walk. I meet a lot of people every year on courses that I run that have got to the stage in their walking career, they've taken the magazines out, they are taking the guidebooks, Cicerone guidebooks out, and they are getting themselves lost for whatever reason that might be. There might be inaccurate routes, the routes might have changed, the landscape might be different time of year, so certain things aren't as obvious. There's a whole host of reasons why guidebooks and in particular magazine routes aren't necessarily as accurate as you'd like. Fed up with getting lost, so at the end of the day, what do? Let's learn to navigate properly. There's also a second stream of people that are new to the outdoors, people in their early 20s, early 30s. They've never really gone through the experience of Duke of Edinburgh or the Scouts, whatever it might be, haven't learnt the basic skills. Suddenly they're taken to the outdoors and they want to do it right from the outset. They're young, they're fit, they can do more adventurous things, but they want to get it. They want the confidence to go and do those things. So they come along, and over a short space of time, it's not a difficult thing to learn. The little bit of plastic called a compass. You get it out the box. It looks complicated. The instructions look complicated. It's not a difficult thing to teach. Likewise, map reading, dead simple.
The younger element, is that a sign of our times these days?
I think it is to some extent, yeah. I mean, obviously, the sample of people that I teach is fairly small, but yeah, I think there's a definite trend for more people of a younger age to be getting out there. And for whatever reason it might be, I don't know, there's just a desire to get things a little bit simpler in their lives. We're surrounded by gadgets at home. We lead busy lives and busy jobs. So getting out, spending a nice day out on the hill, for whatever reason, just escape. I think that certainly is something that is growing.
I mean, you're talking about gadgets. Obviously, the GPS systems are developing at a fantastic rate at the moment, and there's obviously can be a reliance to think they will solve all your problems, just like computers solve all your problems. When you're out on the hill, if you've got sort of little experience, do you find people coming to you at all, or people buying the book and referring to it, that have had a GPS experience and suddenly realised that actually they're not the answers to all their problems?
To some extent, yes. I think there's a lot of people come and say, oh, I've got a GPS. What do you do? What do you use it for? Well, I switch it on, find out where I am, and then switch it off again. And they're spending £120 plus to do that, which seems rather pointless to me. I don't meet too many people that spend all their day with the GPS on and navigating and are using it properly, to be honest. It is one of these gadgets that sits in the rucksack for most of the time. The reason I wrote the GPS book is because to try and get over that problem of people switching it off and switching it on, getting a grid reference, switching it off. And that's where I started the book from, is switch it on, gives you grid reference. Now, first of all, that grid reference is probably a 10-figure grid reference, which is down to the sort of accuracy of a metre, which is ludicrous because you can't read a map to an accuracy of a metre, so why have a GPS unit that can tell you that? But okay, you've got the grid reference, you've worked out what it means where you are. Are you happy with your location. If you're not happy with your location, how do you get to the place you want to be at? And so we build out the navigation from there. So using that basic sort of, this is how people use it for, and extend their skills in a very progressive way through the book. And at the end of, and throughout the text, what I'm trying to do is to say, hang on, you've got to be able to use a map and a compass properly to be able to use a GPS. A GPS is not the answer to a navigator's prayer by any means. It was when they first came out, probably 8-10 years ago now, and they were very expensive units, very basic, and that was that was what the marketing was getting across. You don't need a map anymore. You don't need a compass. It's certainly changed. The manufacturers don't say that anymore. There's warnings on the package within the text of the user guides. But if you can't read a map properly, if you can't use a compass, you cannot possibly use a GPS properly. So within the book, there is a big chapter, very précis summary of the other two books, but on how to use a map and a compass. At the end of the day, it can fail on you. It's a computer. We all know what computers are like. Yeah. So if it fails, then you've got to have that backup.
Mm. Well, let's get back to the map and compass topic, because obviously everything refers back to that. And let's face it, the technology, map and compass, hasn't changed for hundreds of years. No. Their accuracy has probably got better, but that's about it. Is it I should imagine it's quite a joy to suddenly see the penny drop when you have courses and you see people and explain and take away the fear and the confusion and explain that everything is just broken down into smaller and smaller and smaller sections, and to see them suddenly go, oh, right, it's not complicated.
Absolutely. People come. The weekend, the courses I run are weekend courses. Friday night, we just go through a few map basics. And then on the Saturday morning, we're out for a walk, nice gentle walk on the on the limestone air of the White Peak in the Peak District. But the first kilometre or two takes just over an hour to walk. Dreadfully slow. It's not possible. You come out these weekends exhausted, not physically but mentally. But what we're doing is we're actually spotting that fine detail on the map. I show them just a little tiny triangular field. It looks, first glance on the map, like it's a triangular field. It's no more than 25 metres from end to end. But then they see it's not triangular. If you look very closely at the map, it's got a very slight, very short fourth side. It's I don't know. Don't ask me what the technical mathematical symbol, the rhomboid or trapezoidal or whatever it might be. You can see that on the ground quite clearly, but only by looking closely can you see that on the map. There's another point where the two walls don't quite meet. They just, one glances off to form a little gateway. That's there on the map as well. And you do see this mist clearing. And it takes an hour or so for people suddenly to realise that the level of detail that they've been missing. Now, you couldn't possibly spend your days navigating out on a walk, looking at your map in that sort of detail. It'll send you mad and take away the enjoyment of why we're out there, to enjoy the view, to have good company, to have a good conversation, whatever it might be. But if they know that level of detail is there, then they can navigate at that level if necessary. If the chips are down, if the weather's poor, if they get to them, if they're too busy in their conversation and they get to a stage where I have a clue where I am now, they can look at the map, they can start to match these tiny little features with the location. And I'm sure you've done it, I've certainly done it in the past. You're not sure where you are, you look at the map, the map's wrong here, or the ground's wrong. And you then move your location on a few kilometres, and that's when your navigation problems start. But by having that knowledge of that fine detail on the map, it then becomes easy. And also, certainly on that first kilometre or two, there are barns in fields that aren't on the map. Old barns that have been there for a couple of centuries probably, but they're not on the map. There's houses there that for certain knowledge have been there 40 years. They're not on the map either. And the revelation that you see in people's eyes was, hang on, the map's wrong. The map isn't an accurate document. And even no matter how many times that these maps are updated, that particular house that I'm thinking of is never ever going to get on the map, because it's just not part of the OS. They haven't got the time to do that sort of thing. But it doesn't matter, because everything else fits. The contours, the pattern of the contours on the ground, even on a gentle slope, you can see the pattern of the contours, where the roads and the paths just level off, where the slight dips are. It's all there if you look and take the time.
Do you find certain people are more gifted than others from their visualization point of view? When they look at contours and then they can mentally see the terrain before they actually are in the terrain, and there are those who look at it and just can't quite get the lumps and bumps in the right place.
Certain people do have spatial awareness. I don't know the technical name for it, but have this ability to think in 3D almost, and looking at the map, and they can see the pattern of the contour, and they can spot where it is. But again, it's a practice thing. If people spend time to do that, to look at contour patterns on the map, and then try and visualise what it looks like, and then go and look at it on the ground, it will come to you. And the other joy now we've got is digital mapping software, because the ability of those to show a landscape in 3D, have a look at it in flat plan, as you would on with a normal map, then press the 3D button, and the landscape grows. And that is a fantastic way of teaching yourself and confirming to yourself what the landscape looks like. But it's not a male-female thing, it's not an age thing, but it is that some people, it just takes longer.
And coming out to the compass itself, which again is a very simple tool that will never change, really.
No.
Will never change at all. Do people have fear generally when they sort of are faced with having to use it for the first time, and then surely it just doesn't take them long to realise that actually
absolutely not.
It's straightforward.
The Saturday evening of our the bronze weekends, I take them through on screen a little presentation how to use a compass, and I look around the room. They've had a hard day out on the hill already anyway, but you look around and a few eyes are glazing. Maybe it's the pints of beer sat in front of them as well that's helping that process. But you see a few people panicking, and a lot of people come. They've all got compasses. You go to any Walker's bar and ask how many people have got a compass. Everybody will put their hand up. How many people can use it? You'll have a fraction. I mean, get them out there and using it, and very, very quickly. There's 3 simple steps to using a compass. 3 very, very simple steps, and once they've got those in their brain, easy. And it's like any skill though. You've got to practice, and you can't possibly. Now I do have people coming on the bronze weekends, the basic weekends, and I'll see them a year later on the silver weekends, and they haven't done very much. They've been out walking, but they haven't practiced their map and compass skills, and they're a bit rusty. It doesn't take long to break the rust off, but certainly in the books, what I say is spend a weekend a year, a couple of weekends a year, when you're actually going out there to navigate rather than going out for a walk. Go and do the sorts of exercises that we do on our weekends that I include in the book, in the books. Because if you're out on a walk, the weather comes down, foul and disgusting, blizzards, strong winds, thick mist, then those skills have got to be automatic almost.
And I presume really the best exercise for people to do is actually to go out on a walk when the weather is inclement, because not only do they have to challenge themselves, because visibility is a wonderful thing. As soon as you don't have it, then all of a sudden your attention to detail increases dramatically, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
But also you've got the practical aspect as well as of handling a map in a howling wind. You know, if you've got a paper map and you don't have a map case, all of a sudden it's a wet map, which is getting soggy.
Absolutely.
And the detail starts to disappear very rapidly when it's wet.
Yeah.
So I would have thought people will find that their knowledge and experience goes forward in a massive leap, just going for a walk on the local hills during a bad day.
Absolutely. Yeah. You've obviously, if you're going out in bad weather, there's common sense things to do. Tell people where you're going, give them a rough copy of your route. You don't have to stick to exactly. Tell people when you're getting back. All common sense things that just make your walk on the hill safer. But yeah, get out there, go and try it. And I do not like map cases. They limit your visibility to 2 panels of a map. And what happens if you want to look at the hill that's in the distance? You got to unfold your map. So I always use laminated maps. But also, how many people, when they're buying a compass, take their winter gloves with them and try and operate their compass? Because you don't want to be peeling your gloves off just to turn the compass housing around. So you got to have you got to have kit that works together. So if it's your compass that you can't turn in your existing gloves, try and find a compass that you can turn, or try and find gloves that aren't quite as thick, that you can bend your fingers in. These wonderful mitts are fantastic, but you haven't got your finger control anymore. So, and it is something, certainly using a compass, and silver compasses are designed for ease of use and are absolutely fantastic things. And as you say, they're never ever going to change. Why change something that works? But they do require that element of precision, and you've got to be able to use these things. And as you say, in foul weather, get out there, play. You don't have to go far. You can be inside.
Well, just the local walk. It means it's changed. As soon as the visibility's gone, the familiarity's gone. And
Absolutely.
It's surprising how quick, especially on a whiteout, how quickly the local hills change their dynamics.
Absolutely.
And what used to be your micro-navigation point has disappeared,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden, well, which way are you facing?
Yeah.
And I find that a great exercise, and it's happened to me unintentionally a couple of times, and it just reinforces that, yeah, okay, let's just backtrack to where I knew I was.
Yeah.
Where have I got, and which way was I heading?
Yeah.
And let's pick it up from there.
Yeah.
I mean, the other thing, coming back to technology again, you mentioned the digital mapping service. And overseas listeners probably listening to this don't have the same benefit of OS maps and familiarity with them in their countries. The tendency, certainly I've seen with people doing longer treks, purely because of the amount of volume of maps they would carry with them, is to be printing off A4, because that's as big as they can, A4 maps, or plotting them into their GPS system in some way. And personally, I agree with you that the biggest problem with that is that if you're in a situation where you need to triangulate where you are and find 3 distant peaks, you can't see them because they're off the edge of your A4 sheet of paper.
Yeah.
It's something to be aware of, that as good as those systems are, it's ideal if you're sort of familiar with the route, or the route's fairly clear. But if you have a possibility or a danger of going off route, then it is back to basics all the time, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Map and compass.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you can do a lot without a map. You can just read the landscape. Streams flow downhill. So if you get stuck, and eventually a stream will flow through a village, through a farmhouse, through a settlement of some sort. So yeah, if you do get stuck, without a map, heaven forbid, yeah. There are simple things to do, but yeah, you've got to. Certainly, there's nowhere in Europe. I think Spanish maps used to be fairly dreadful, if I can say that, but that they've improved. But there's nowhere in Europe where you can't get hold of a relatively decent map. And I was likening sort of walking abroad to walking in snow. You never quite know when you're going to plunge up to your waist in a big hole. So you have to walk a little bit softly, a little bit sort of gently, expecting that plunge of doom when you go up to your waist. Likewise with a foreign map, walk with a bit of caution. Only when you can trust, and try that fine map detail. Really look in detail. In an area which is safe, on the edge of the village that you're staying in, look in fine detail. How accurate is that map to what I'm seeing on the ground? And if it's fine, if it's spot on, brilliant. Go and use it, go and enjoy it like you would an Ordnance Survey or a Harvey map. If there's inaccuracies, then you've got to treat it with caution. And then that's when you walk with caution. and expect things to go wrong, expect errors to creep in. I took a lady out who was walking in Italy recently, and she wanted some basic map and compass skills because she didn't really trust the maps. And when she contacted me when she got back from this walking holiday and said, absolutely invaluable that weekend of yours, because it taught me to look in detail at the map, and if the map was wrong, then there was there were other things that around me that I could spot to identify my location, and they weren't brilliant maps that she was given on this walking holiday to walk with. So, but it got around, and there wasn't enough time on this holiday that she didn't know where she was. So, yeah, foreign maps. Technology, they've all got their limitations, and Ordnance Survey, Harvey maps, all got their limitations.
I mean, there is the assumption, isn't there, with because we're used to the standard that we take for granted in this country, like our television, if you like, our entertainment, and our maps and our books and our guidebooks, that anywhere you go in the world, it will be the same standard. And it can be a bit of a surprise to people that assumption can cost them dearly, one way or the other. Flipping it over the other way, do you find you have many overseas visitors come to your courses to get more background information about using the UK system?
No, to be perfectly honest.
Oh, okay.
No, I think that the furthest I have had somebody flying from Moscow, but he was the Russian correspondent for The Guardian, so he flew in to sort of benefit his own walking, but he was British, and and that same weekend there were a couple of Russians on the course, but they were living in London. And a couple from Ireland, but no, at the moment it's a UK market. But yeah, why not? Perhaps my marketing's not good enough.
Yes.
I need a good podcast to go around the world.
Absolutely. Well, any English-speaking people listening to this, I think it would be definitely in their interest if they were considering coming to walk in the UK. To develop those skills, certainly from the Americans that I've met up in Scotland that have gone off the beaten path, assuming, again, it's this assumption thing, assuming very much like the American trails that the English trails or the Scottish trails are marked.
Yeah.
And it comes as a great surprise when they're not. Yeah. And discerning the difference between a metalled road and a Land Rover track and a footpath and a sheep track suddenly comes quite an educational moment for them.
Absolutely. I mean, the worst maps, I would complain about Spanish maps, but some of the trail maps and the American trails that I've walked on, dreadful, absolutely dreadful. I mean, the Appalachian Trail map. I've done elements of the Appalachian Trail, not all of it, and you really are relying on very basic things like, I've crossed that stream there. Now there's nothing else to look at on this map until the next stream that we cross, and lots of squiggles, lots of contours, the track marked on in a broad red path, and then the odd stream. Absolutely dreadful, but we have wandered off the trail to sort of to loop round, just to do a day's walk on the trail. So you're starting off the trail, joining the trail, and then going off later on. And it has worked. So you can, with care and perseverance, even work on a dreadful map where you are. But walking around the world, I mean, I was lucky enough for 17 years to lead walking holidays for Country Walking magazine all around the world, various places, South Africa, Nepal, Peru, Iceland, Greenland, America, New Zealand. Fantastic. And a great experience to get in some places, try and get hold of the maps, but also to use maps from various countries. Icelandic maps look like they should have "Here be dragons" written on. They really are something from a time when map making was very basic, but which is bizarre because the country's growing by a centimetre a year because the two halves of the island are moving apart. So you'd think they'd be fairly hot on the navigation, on their map making, but. Lots of different styles of maps, lots of different standards of maps. Some are more like sketches, some are more topographic, almost like paintings with not proper relief maps like we have over here. Some are fantastic Nepalese maps. The Finns worked with the Nepalese government and mapped the whole of the country. fantastic maps, not easy to get hold of. But when I first started going there, they were blueprint maps like you see in architects' offices, and 1 to 500,000 scale. Now you can get 1 to 25 or 1 to 50,000 maps for the whole of Nepal. And I've got one on my wall at home, a 1 to 50, which takes in Everest. And it's stunning.
That must be a thing of beauty to look at.
It really is, which is why I was so careful bringing this back, just so I could frame it. It is fantastic, and I've never actually been up to Everest Base Camp or in that area, but it's just great just to stand out and look at.
Fantastic. Well, to conclude, I mean, we've sort of moved away from the book slightly, but just refer back to the books. So people who, of whatever age, or whatever background, or whatever abilities and skills and experiences they might have had, give me concisely, why should they look at the book? There's nothing to be scared of, is there?
Nothing to be scared of. Whether you've been walking for years and using maps and compasses for years, there's always something to pick up. There's if nothing else, it's a clear explanation of what you've been doing for a while and a confirmation that you're doing it right, or a suggestion that maybe you aren't doing it right or as efficiently as you could do. So yeah, if you've been using maps and compasses for a while, I would recommend just read the book. It's not a difficult read. I'd like to think it's quite fun to read as well. But if you're new to the game, then it sets out in a nice progressive way the essential skills from start to finish to get you to a level that you are a confident, competent navigator, and at the level where you don't have to be using your map and a compass all the time. The courses I run, the gold weekends, I say, put your compasses away. Look at your map, but not look at your map all the time. Get out there and enjoy it again. The reason we go walking is for fantastic views, good company, good conversation. And if you can get your navigation skills to the level where you don't have to use them all the time, but when you do need it, you're precise, you're accurate, then you've succeeded. Or if you come through my courses, I've succeeded in making you a good, competent navigator. That's what the book's trying to do, and feedback I'm having, it's succeeding.
A reminder of those two books we referred to once again, the pocket-sized navigation and the slightly larger map and compass. And they are, of course, available direct from cicerone.co.uk and all good outdoor book retailers. Both books cover in great depth the simple skills and knowledge you need to find yourself and act both as an inspirational informational guide as well as a reference manual. I've been talking with author Pete Hawkins, and should you require even more information, you can find out more about his navigation courses at petehawkins.co.uk.
This sponsored programme is produced and hosted by theoutdoorstation.co.uk.